Good morning.
Hi.
Hi, Kartik. Thank you very much for agreeing to be part of Green Gorilla Conversations. I'm delighted to have you on board because, as you know, been following you for a while via LinkedIn, but also I heard you speaking at London Build. So I'm really inspired by the way you do your work as a sustainability consultant, and so I just wanted to have you on board in this little project of ours. So if you could please introduce yourself and tell us, about you. So who is Kartik?
Okay. Thank you, Virginia. Thank you for the opportunity, and I'm glad you found all the interaction I've been doing useful. To give you a bit of background about myself, I'm a mechanical engineer, a building service engineer from background. Have been very keen in energy and sustainability, and so moved on to the more specialist side of the business, which is sustainability, energy modeling, carbon reduction, and BREEAM, of course. So my background has been quite deep core into engineering, which helps me as a sustainability consultant, and I'm a chartered engineer too. To give you some background, I've been working at Sweco since past nearly 7 years, and worked on Bloomberg projects from the very outset of my career with Sweco.
Perfect. So obviously you have a technical background. You just mentioned Bloomberg. I need to mention to whoever is listening that actually you had quite a high achievement in your personal career as a sustainability consultant, because you got the BREEAM Assessor of the Year award in 2016. Is that right?
That's correct, Virginia. We are 3 times BREEAM Company of the Year, and it's been during the time I've been the head of building sustainability at Sweco. So it was not once but thrice we won the BREEAM Company of the Year for delivering the highest number of outstanding buildings in the world. And we have a record on the BREEAM 2014 scheme. There are 8 buildings as it stands which are outstanding, and 6 of them are Sweco buildings. We have been fortunate to be involved with right sort of client and right sort of buildings as well. To give you some examples, we've done the headquarter office of Louis Vuitton, Havas, Universal Studios, and quite recently LinkedIn, and all of these buildings are BREEAM outstanding buildings. And
that's quite amazing. It's really, really impressive. And I'm sure, you mentioned fortune, but I believe, there must be some, basic ingredients that you guys use, you personally use, to achieve, these outstanding levels. So can you actually share, what do you think are the magic ingredients for making a BREEAM building, the best it can be? It could be outstanding, it could be excellent, but, obviously for outstanding, you need that extra an extra leg. So can you please share what is your idea in that sense?
Yeah, Virginia, you'd be quite surprised. The ingredients are quite simple. We always stick to the basic. We, if I may say, we use a lot of common sense. The secret behind is understanding the project really well. We understand what the client is trying to achieve and work within the boundaries of the budget as well. We are very ambitious in terms of, we do come up with ideas of our own, but they are backed up with a lot of background work we have done, and also with the fact that we are very much in touch with reality. To give you some examples, we are sensitive to say what's going on the roof. If the roof is being used, then rainwater harvesting is not possible. So we really make the effort to understand the project, and that's the key behind the success. And also, I would suggest it's down to the fact we are qualified people. We come from very different backgrounds. Inside my team of 15 people, and we come together quite nicely. So I've got team members who've got architectural experience, life cycle costing experience, in terms of not just BREEAM, but beyond BREEAM life cycle costing experience. And it's all topped up by my experience, which is quite heavy on energy and sustainability. To give you some idea, we're working on Canada Water A1, and we have secured ourselves from BRE an applied innovation on the heating system. And the heating system has been designed by my team, which has also been doing BREEAM. So we know the systems really in and out. we are able to imagine things and get them in practice. That's what is the secret. But an underlying fact is, it's all a lot of common sense, a lot of understanding the building, and being in touch with reality.
I love that, because I've been advocating for a while now that sustainable architecture shouldn't even be called sustainable architecture. It's just common sense. It's really, what
absolutely.
makes the most sense within that space, within that location, with the client budget, and it just maximize those opportunities that you have in the job ahead, basically.
Correct.
Brilliant.
That's right.
You mentioned when you wrote an article for Building magazine not long ago, mentioning, for example, LCA. So how do you think that will impact the success of, even not just the BREEAM assessment, but any sustainability project?
To start with, we are going to see a fall in the operational energy carbon, and this is mainly due to the fact our UK grid is decarbonizing. So the major chunk of carbon is going to be embodied carbon. The way around the success of that is suggesting to the client quite early on, also working with their aspirations and understanding the facade and the building itself, what they're trying to achieve. By conducting the LCA, you come up with suggestions which are rather subtle in the changes, still not changing the whole philosophy of what client is trying to deliver, but still achieving success in carbon. And I think we've kind of mastered this art to a lot of sense.
Yeah, so obviously it's a key element to any process, because I know that our colleagues in the industry really quite hate LCA.
I have, we've had similar sort of early feedback, but what's happened is, and this is kind of the difficult part of it, we have built a formidable portfolio. So if you look at the LCA, we've carried out from Bloomberg building to a very small building called Q1 at King's Cross. So the portfolio in itself starts to help us, because we've done it in past, then the client becomes more confident in doing so. And that's how it works. But I think my advice to a sustainability consultant is to take time and understand the building before you go and suggest that, because it may not be for all the buildings. It may just go against the aspiration of the client. And also, by doing so, you can give faith to the client. It's not going to change your building completely. We're not asking you to use mud and cob to build your building. It's working around what you're trying to do and identifying the subtle opportunities. And these subtle opportunities, once added on, turns into quite a lot of carbon saving in long-term future.
That's quite, I think it's very sensible advice, actually. So if you don't have that sort of perfect client that actually gives you the trust to go ahead and do things, or if they don't have a consistent budget for sustainability, what can you suggest? Because that seems to be the majority of cases where you actually have to spend quite a lot of effort convincing clients and design teams of the value of sustainability. So what is your suggestion and advice in that sense to our colleagues?
Virginia, the key is to be, as I said, to understand the project really well and to advise the client in such a way that the sustainability actually produces value. I'll give you a very good example of it. This is at King's Cross, building B4, which is the headquarter office of Universal Studios. The roof garden is actually made up of native species and also an accessible roof garden. We scored tremendous amount of ecology points there by having that roof garden there and producing an ethos which can be used by the end user tenant. Otherwise, this place would have been just a brown roof. Again, the client would struggle to see a value of a large brown roof which is not accessible. So we suggesting that in making it accessible adds value to the client. This is one example, but I could list you tremendous number of these sort of examples where we've got the value and we've got the sustainability on the board. So it does, and a lot of times, fall on the BREEAM assessor and the teams you're working with, and there's no moving away from that. It's educating yourself and finding right education on sustainability is also quite relevant and key, and which I believe something you're doing, which is very relevant, this sort of trainings. And this is, I'm telling you as it is, this is a fact.
Thank you. And in fact, I think you mentioned something quite key. So you have to really understand the project. That means that there is no something like one size fits all in these sorts of things. You have to really look at the specific situation, specific location, specific client, and work around that. Is that right?
Absolutely, absolutely, Virginia. Without that, it's the solutions given by the sustainability assessors are not going to hit home at all. I'm completely against just reading the BREEAM guide out to the clients. This is where you'll find detachment between the client and BREEAM, and this is where they would start not liking BREEAM, and they would not start liking the sustainability ethos coming out of it. It's understanding BREEAM, understanding the principles of it, and explaining them in a right fashion. It again comes down to the training, and I do not believe just reading the guide and regurgitating in front of clients is the way. We don't do that at all.
I mean, anyone will switch off in that sense. It happens to the best of us anyway. So
absolutely,
you have to really make it alive in some ways and really show the value. Yeah.
That's correct. And also not appear very adamant and be subtle in your suggestions, and work with them and not work against them. That's what wins the client. It is about people. And when it is about people, that's where, as I said, the the training of individuals do come into highlight quite a lot, actually.
Brilliant. So do you have any particular tips that you want to, because obviously you are being named Assessor of the Year, so you must have done something very right. And you named a lot of very useful things so that people can actually go and implement, starting from speaking to their clients, understanding their needs, and understanding the location, working with what you got, etc. But any final tips, anything that you think they can, really work on to make themselves a bit more inspired as well? Because sometimes, it's quite mind-numbing to just go through, even retrospectively, unfortunately, in some cases, going through the manual, say yes, no, yes, no. So anything that can really inspire our colleagues to love their jobs again.
Okay, Virginia, I think a lot of people miss the trick in the fact that we are in a world where we need not specialists, but ultra specialists. So what I'm trying to get at is these are people who would say sustainability BREEAM expert, but then BREEAM expert do have the opportunity to go completely into life cycle analysis. So if you're inspired by doing life cycle analysis, by all means, you go completely into it and make yourself, rather than delivering just BREEAM, making BREEAM part of it and delivering the sustainability side of it. Also, working with the aspiration of client will allow you to produce a pre-assessment which actually works for them. So it will work both ways. It'll inspire you and it'll inspire the client as well. So targeting credits which are meaningful, and you'll see credits being applied in reality, and that's where it starts to change the whole ethos of BREEAM. The biggest criticism I've had of BREEAM is filling out the tools, which is quite dry part, and a lot of people don't like it. My suggestion would be to fill them out as you go along, and again, working with finite number of credits and not being unreasonable to yourself and unreasonable to the client. Targeting what is achievable and push wherever you possibly can. That's what my recommendation would be, and going down the route of being ultra specialist into life cycle analysis, or perhaps NOx pollution or something of that sort, because sustainability is vast. We are very fortunate. We are at very early stages of sustainability. The future is very, very bright. In next 20 years, sustainability will expand into its real form, what it should be. One more example would be being expert in calculation of actual energy, or specializing yourself into a particular part. There's no moving away from fact BREEAM will be to a level admin part of work, but you could quite easily separate that work between team members. So if you had ultra specialists, 5 ultra specialists, some in pollution, some in material life cycle analysis, they could fill in their part. And that's how you could bring the BREEAM assessment together.
So it's really like a teamwork, isn't it? It's a team effort from different people with
Correct.
different expertises,
Correct.
just
Correct.
coming together and giving the best of
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's collaboration. Again, in my article, I've stressed upon collaboration. Without collaboration, there's no sustainability. I'll put that level of emphasis on collaboration.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Do you have any final thoughts for us?
Virginia, a few points I would add. It's the importance of understanding what you're trying to deliver, going into slide skin deep and not just reading through BREEAM guide, trying to understand what it in reality means. That's very, very important. Getting right training, I can't stress that point enough. Getting the right training, getting the right ethos is very, very important. Otherwise, you don't know the real story, and that's where you start to not gauge the advice you're trying to give to the client. And lastly, being the ultra specialist and really going after what you really want to do. And that I can't, there's no two ways about it. You do what you really love to do and not just, doing it sake of doing it. I don't do that, nor I would advise anybody else to do it.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Kartik.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
it's been a real pleasure to have you on board in this little project.
Thank you.
And yeah, wish you all the best for the future as well.
Thank you very much, Virginia. Thank you.